The Honorable Marlene Malahoo Fort, Councillor Diana Mackenzie, Mr. Corey Hyde, specially invited guests, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, both here and joining us on our YouTube channel, good afternoon and welcome to the Jamaican High Commission. This afternoon, we will be discussing the proposed constitutional reform and its impact on the Jamaican diaspora. Our guest speaker is the Honorable Marlene Malahoo Fort, Jamaica's Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Minister Malahoo Fort is a proud and patriotic Jamaican who has distinguished herself at the highest level in every area of her academic and professional pursuits. She is a graduate of the University of the West Indies, Barbados, the Norman Manley Law School, Jamaica, Yale and Harvard Universities in the USA, as well as King's College in the UK. She has also had a distinguished legal career, having served as a public prosecutor, a judge of the RM courts, and as a private counsel. She also served in the Senate and is the sitting member of Parliament representing St. James West Central. Minister Malahoo Fort has held ministerial positions such as State Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Attorney General of Jamaica, and presently as Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause as we welcome Minister Malahoo Fort.
Good afternoon, good night, good morning, wherever you are joining this conversation from. I take instructions well, and I'm told by our acting High Commissioner that it is quite okay for me to sit here. Is that okay for you? In the immediate audience, it makes it a little more personal. Thank you, Madam High Commissioner, for your kind introduction. I am very pleased to be here with my Jamaican family in the United Kingdom to take your questions, give you a little bit of information on what your government is doing in the area of constitutional reform. As you should know, Jamaica is a constitutional monarchy. Our head of state is King Charles III, King of Jamaica, King of the United Kingdom. On the occasion of Jamaica's 60th anniversary of political independence, the nation was invited to reflect on our achievements, and in turn, the government did its own reflection. In our efforts to further our goals of independence, we have taken the decision based on the expressed will of those who have spoken that we would abolish the constitutional monarchy as our form of government and transition to a republic. King Charles III, King of Jamaica, unfortunately, is not a symbol of our Jamaican identity and our Jamaican nationality. King Charles III, King of Jamaica, is far removed from the Jamaican people. Many felt a closer affinity to Queen Elizabeth II, who acceded the throne at a young age and who remained on the throne when Jamaica gained independence. Jamaicans are of the view that the monarchy is now a distant, farther in the distance with the accession of King Charles III. So when the Prince of Wales, Prince William, visited Jamaica representing Queen Elizabeth II, his grandmother, Prime Minister Holness, indicated that we would be transitioning away from the monarchy. There is no ulterior objective being pursued. We are making our own assessments on our goals since Jamaica attained political independence in 1962. The Constitution of Jamaica, 1962, affords the highest level of protection to the role of the monarchy in the state of Jamaica. To change any aspect that incorporates the monarchy requires not only a supermajority vote in the parliament after going through a very specific process, but it also requires the approval of the people of Jamaica who are registered to vote in general elections to approve the change. And any change to the constitution and any change to the place of the monarchy can only take place through a very specific process. Not our talking, as important as talking is, not our merely agreeing to the change, but by the tabling of a bill for an act of parliament to amend the provisions of the Constitution. There are a number of issues in the Jamaica Constitution that are deeply entrenched. That is to say, they are given the highest level of protection and are set beyond easy change and easy reach. And essentially, there are about 13 provisions. Section 49, subsection 3 of the Constitution lists those provisions. And they include the process by which the Constitution is altered, the effect of the Constitution of Jamaica as the supreme law of the land, the establishment of the Parliament of Jamaica, comprising His Majesty the King, really Her Majesty the Queen and her heirs and successors, a Senate and a House of Representatives, the composition of the Senate from the government and the opposition benches of Parliament, disqualification from and election to the House of Representatives, qualification for membership in the Senate and House of Representatives subject to disqualification rules, and including Commonwealth citizenship, age, and ordinary residence, sessions of Parliament, the life, extension, and dissolution of the Parliament, appointment of senators after a general election, and the vesting of the executive authority of Jamaica in the monarch. These are the deeply entrenched provisions of the Independence Constitution of Jamaica that are set far above easy change. The government has decided to proceed with the reform of the Constitution in phases. And there is a simple and practical rationale for it. Constitutional reform is complex and it is lengthy. We have been talking about it for a long time. In fact, every decade since independence, work began in the 1970s and then fell away. In the 1980s, we had to deal with structural adjustments in the economy. In the 1990s, we went to the liberalization and we had a number of issues running into 2000s. And then we had in the 2011 period, the first major amendment with the replacement of Chapter 3 of the Constitution with the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. And ever since then, successive governments have agreed on the critical importance of making the changes, but we have not been able to go beyond a certain point. We have made changes to the independent constitutions, changes including nationality, one that would affect you and your children, the process by which you gain nationality or can be deprived of it. But insofar as the core issue of the executive authority of the state of Jamaica, the head of state of Jamaica, the composition of our parliament, we have not been able to make the change. It is said that the country has been referendum shy since the holding of the referendum on West Indies Federation and independence. And it also requires cooperation that we are still struggling with between opposition and government. And on top of that, the approval of the people. And we know that the people can be very hard because governments successively have not delivered to the people as they need and as they desire. And there is much displeasure in the relationship. So how do you cooperate in a space that is traditionally one for competition? Is not an easy feat. And how do the people approve something that many of them really do not know about? So what the process has shown is a high level of ignorance about the process and about the content of the Constitution of Jamaica. And how really do you ask the people to approve changes that they do not know? We see the deficit in their understanding of basic concepts of governance, and really does not inure very well. So the work ahead of us is massive and is huge, but we have to take the steps, however small they are, in order to go forward. This process is being assisted by a constitutional reform committee. It is a high-level committee that has both an advisory and an oversight role. The work we are doing is building on previous reform work done under different administrations, and also recommendations made and accepted by the Parliament of Jamaica on the kind of changes to be made. So we have not had a referendum since Jamaica gained independence, and therefore it's the very same issues that we're dealing with. So some may say, what's the point? If the work was done before, why are you going back there? It's the same set of issues. They have not changed since the Jamaica Independence Constitution came into effect. So the Constitutional Reform Committee is tasked with assessing how the passage of time has impacted recommendations of the Joint Select Committee on Constitutional and Electoral Reform. The recommendations are set out in a report from 1995, which was submitted and approved by the Parliament of Jamaica. Since so much time has passed between 1995 and now, we have decided that it would be sensible to consider what fresh perspectives should be taken into account in light of national, regional, and international developments between 1995 and now. And the committee is most importantly tasked with making recommendations that are necessary to update the previous recommendations for implementation by the government of Jamaica. So we have been working to evaluate those 1995 recommendations, and in particular to advise on the nature of the presidency. So when we abolish the monarchy is to be replaced with the office of President of the Republic of Jamaica. And questions and issues arise on the nature of the presidency, qualification, tenure, the kinds of powers to be exercised by the president. The process is set in 3 phases at this time, And in phase 1, which is where we are now, we're focusing on the deeply entrenched provisions, and in particular, the abolition of the monarchy as the form of government and the establishment of the Republic of Jamaica. We will not build out the Republic of Jamaica in a single reform activity. It will take time for us to work out exactly what it means to be Jamaican and what we will enshrine in our highest law. But for phase 1, the focus is on the office of president that will replace the monarchy as head of the state. And we will also be looking at the other deeply entrenched provisions which I outlined to you previously, meaning the alteration of the Constitution, the effect of the Constitution as the supreme law, the establishment of the Parliament of Jamaica, comprising the monarch, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, the composition of the Senate from the government side and the opposition side, disqualification, the disqualification from an election to the House of Representatives, qualification for membership in the Senate. And I know one issue that will already be on the top of your mind. The consideration is that the only nationality that should qualify for membership in the Parliament of Jamaica is the Jamaican nationality, not Commonwealth. We are also looking on a perspective which says that the primacy that the Commonwealth has been given in the Constitution of Jamaica should be revised and the role be put in ordinary law. So you do know that when the British Empire went on decline, the monarch decided to establish the Commonwealth with the monarch as head of the Commonwealth, kind of a way of rebuilding the British Empire. But it has changed significantly. And we have members of the Commonwealth that have really little or nothing in common with our Jamaican nationality, while we have Jamaicans who are still very connected with Jamaica, who hold dual citizenship, and they are disqualified from participating. So we have to reason out some things. There is a lot more to be said, but this session is meant to be interactive, and I know there are many questions, and I think information will be provided, hopefully, in the answers to the questions. So I'm going to pause at this point and allow us to move into the interactive question and answer session.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard our minister. She has spoken on the constitutional reform, what it would look like, and the things that you should consider when you are a part of the fabric of what we call the Jamaican citizenry. Now, we have got questions from various platforms. I've compiled some from those who could not make it here today, but we'll be taking some from the floor. And we're going to have what we call a very interactive session based on what had been said earlier. Now, in order for you to be recognized, I'm asking you to raise your hand, and I will pass the microphone on to you once you're identified. And this is what I'm going to ask you to do. Please stay on topic and respect the opinions of others. If you want to have a follow-up question to what somebody probably have already asked, just be mindful and respectful. And guess what? We respect all opinions because we're having a conversation.
I see a troublemaker in the audience, and I noticed that he took out his gadget and he has been recording. I am putting that troublemaker on notice that I will tolerate no trouble from him. Wonders never cease.
I think that person is from Otrios.
You know, they say that if you throw a stone in the pen, whomever it hits will squeal? All right.
All right, we've got a raised hand, Minister, from the person beside that individual you have pointed out, and we're going to have this conversation. Your question, sir.
As you please.
Good afternoon. Reform. With Jamaica going republic, or the thought of Jamaica going republic, one, how are you going to solve the issue of the Privy Council? And two, will people here and abroad be able to vote as part of the electoral process?
What do you see the issue of the Privy Council as? Because different people have different views on what the issue of the Privy Council is.
From my experience and knowledge, on average it takes 5 years for a case to be transmitted from Jamaica to London, as opposed to the CCJ, it's just next door. And in terms of punishment being handed out in Jamaica, I think it's a breach of one's human rights or constitutional right, where the victim doesn't have a say, but the law lords in London can tell us in Jamaica what to do with our criminals while the victims are suffering.
All right. So you have raised a number of issues. The Judicial Committee of His Majesty's Privy Council is currently Jamaica's final court. In addition to being a committee, a judicial committee, it is also a court in its own right. Trinidad, for example, that is a republic and is not a member of the Commonwealth realm, still uses the Privy Council as its final court, and in that capacity, it is not an advisor to His Majesty the King. It is a court in its own right, and it is a court now that is shared with the UK Supreme Court. So you have it in substance as a court and in form as a committee which advises the King on appeals to Jamaica. Matters going to your highest appellate level usually take time. They do not get from trial to your final appellate level overnight. Trials take long, and appeals at the first level of appeal, which would be at the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, would also take time. And then coming to the Privy Council after all of the procedural requirements are met. Procedural requirements will exist, and they do exist at the CCJ. They do for all final courts. It is not so much an issue of the time that it takes, because the cases coming from Jamaica are not competing with other cases for time, but as in any judicial calendar, you would have regard to matters that are already set. The real issue with the Privy Council is that the Privy Council is, as we use it now, is the monarch's judicial institution. And also, Jamaicans require a visa to come to the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom made no distinction in its visa policy for access to justice. And so all things relating to Jamaica were lumped in their immigration policy. And I can tell you that this is a sore issue for all Jamaicans. And as Jamaicans living here in the United Kingdom, it should be a sore issue for you, and it should be one that all of you take up the cause for. It is plainly wrong and an affront to access to justice for His Majesty's government to require Jamaicans to get a visa to access justice at their final court. This is a separate issue from which final court? Separate issue. And I don't want you to mix it up, because Jamaicans are saying that there are some Jamaicans who are saying that we should accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice as a court from the region that has distinguished itself. There are others who are saying we can keep the Privy Council for a number of reasons. At this stage, there is divided opinion on the matter. And as part of the constitutional reform process, we intend to have a full-blown discussion. But it is plainly wrong and an affront to justice for His Majesty's government to require Jamaicans, as a member of the Commonwealth realm, to have to get a visa to access the final court. It is wrong. Very wrong. Victims do have a say. Victims' rights have emerged in a new and different way traditionally. So I would say it's not so much that a court is telling us how to deal with the criminals. Once you go into the formal justice system, the courts will make their order, and the orders would have to be complied with. So again, I would phrase it a little differently. Increasingly, a space is given for victims, and in Jamaica, we already have made provisions in the law for compensation for victims, for their voices to be heard at sentencing hearing. It's a new and emerging area, and it is being defined, shaped by common Commonwealth principles. So I would say that there may be many issues with the Privy Council, but the access to justice issue and the requirement by His Majesty's government for a member of the realm to have to get a visa is the most egregious one. It's the most egregious one.
Thank you, Minister. Now, just a reminder that we will be giving the Minister the latitude to respond to the questions, given no specific time, because that may now open another opportunity for follow-up questions as she responds. And just for clarity, Minister, Pat Reed online was asking about the statement you made about dual citizenship,
yes,
right? And the right to participate or
yes,
not to participate,
yes,
just for clarity.
The Constitution of Jamaica designates Commonwealth citizenship as the citizenship criterion for eligibility to serve in our Parliament. In the committee, we have considered that the citizenship should be Jamaican citizenship, and then we will have to deal with Jamaicans who hold other citizenships, and we're looking to resolve the issue of conflicted allegiance through a test of allegiance, because with the citizenships come rights and responsibilities, and we thought that wars were behind us, but increasingly we're seeing the emergence of wars and rumors of wars, and who knows what will happen. So we have to, as the Constitution does, now make provision for how you deal with the test of allegiance. There will come a time when single allegiance will be required to serve national interest.
So, Minister, in rounding up and summarizing that, if we have both British and Jamaican national citizenship, we can be a part of the Constitution Committee or be elected to some sort of president role. Is that so?
So currently, a Jamaican who holds British nationality is eligible because it's Commonwealth. It's a Commonwealth nationality. The rules allow for dual nationality. Under the current constitutional arrangement, a foreign country is not a country in the Commonwealth. Under the new constitution, a foreign country will be any country other than Jamaica. You're foreign to us. So we will tell you, we have not refined the rules yet, but it is nothing strange. I mean, we're not inventing the wheel here. Jamaica is an independent nation. Jamaica is a sovereign nation. And any other nation will be a foreign nation. Right now, a foreign nation is a nation outside of the Commonwealth under the Constitution. So whether you are in the Commonwealth or not, you will be foreign to Jamaica. Yes. That's why we have foreign affairs. It's the affairs of, yes.
Thank you, Minister.
It's not a complex issue. Even if you don't immediately understand it, it's not one that you need to trouble yourself too much with. Yes.
All right, thank you, Minister. All right, we recognize from the floor.
Yes. Good afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon,
Malone
Silburn.
I'm not a troublemaker, ladies and gentlemen.
No, tell them that we are well acquainted from my previous life in foreign affairs.
We're well acquainted, and I try to always, rock the boat in certain respect, because I believe we can't stay safe. In the first chapter, which you mentioned that there's going to be abolishing the king.
Yes.
You mentioned about the type of presidency, and Diane Mackenzie's here, and we were part of the initial first 3 town hall meetings in the UK, in Bristol, London, and Birmingham. A lot of questions people were asking about is the type of presidents, because it was mentioned some time ago that your commission and the 14 persons on the panel
Constitutional Reform Committee,
were more focusing towards a ceremonial president, and people were actually questioning, are you going to still focus on that, or you have moved away from the ceremonial bit, because people are more leaning towards elective and a more active sort of presidency. And that is just one, because, and there's so much I want to say, but I just want you to focus on that one particularly as to the type of presidency that the committee is focusing on. And are the people of Jamaica, which are the ones who are going to be voting, are they fully abreast of this, the education aspect of it? Yes, just my first question.
You are getting into the heart of the matter. So in its deliberation, the recommendation from the 1995 committee was for a non-executive president exercising particular powers. We have been considering separating the head of state, the office of head of state, from the office of head of government. And so we would set above the competitive partisan politics the office of president, symbolic of the national identity, national unity, above the political fray, and as a neutral arbiter. If you accept those as overarching values for the Jamaican people, then it begs the question, what type of president? So all nations have a formal head of state and a formal head of government. Some have a single office holder for head of state and head of government. From our reading of Jamaicans who have spoken on the issue, they value a head of state that is above the competitive politics, and that is symbolic of the national identity and symbolic of national unity, and who would be a neutral arbiter. Now, if those are our high ideals, then you will not get that in an executive president who exercises the powers of head of state and head of government, dealing with the ordinary affairs of the running of government. So Jamaicans seem to be wary of the partisanship in the politics and how that can negatively impact nation building and the key institutions of the nation. We are not going for a ceremonial president. In our discussions, we have in fact categorized for convenience 3 formulations of what the type of president could look like, taking into account the views of the people. And the first would be a head of state that is politically selected or elected with executive powers covering a substantial area of government. That is the first category that we can consider, the first type. And a head of state politically selected or elected with executive powers covering a substantial area of government, such as what you have in the United States. Then you have the a non-executive president who is a formal head of state, but who performs merely ceremonial function. This is not what we hear the Jamaicans saying that they want. And the third category is a formal head of state who is a non-executive president performing not only ceremonial functions, but who is given specific powers which do not involve the daily administration of government, and who is selected in a non-partisan manner. So those are the three categories as we look around. And based on our reading of what the people are saying, the third category seems to match that. So people conflate a number of issues. For example, if I directly vote for the president, does it mean that the president will be more accountable? At the heart of all the issues that have been raised, Jamaicans are asking for greater accountability from their government. And many seem to believe that an executive form of government would deliver more accountability because they have a direct say in it. The research shows that it's not entirely true at all. It does not follow. So we have been spending a lot of time in the committee tracking all of the views wherever they have been expressed and trying to understand what it is that those views reflect. And so far, what we understand is that people want greater accountability from government. So what are the methods by which we can achieve that greater accountability? For any office, and in particular the high office of president, you will have the issue of how is the person selected and what are the implications for that? What are the qualifications? And more importantly, what are the powers to be exercised in this office? Some are also of the view that the office of Governor General, which is the de facto head of state, is merely ceremonial, but it is not so. And I also want to say to you, do not underestimate the importance of ceremonial duties in state affairs. Swearing in, for example, of a judge is a condition precedent to a judge exercising judicial powers. The swearing in of a parliamentarian is a condition precedent to the parliamentarian participating in the proceedings of Parliament. So you become a member of Parliament on election, but before you can participate formally in the proceedings, you have to be sworn into office. So do not scoff on ceremonial matters. They are important. I mean, in Jamaica, we do a number of ceremonial activities around our holiday times. These are by no means insignificant. They are ways of building a sense of pride in your nation. So I think there are some who believe that ceremonial duties have no value. Quite to the contrary. But we're saying for the Jamaican head of state, the powers to be exercised would be more than ceremonial. But they would not involve the daily administration of government, which is where you get your politicking and your competitive politics in. Yes.
And I think when you mentioned the ceremonial bit there,
Yes.
I think persons need to also understand that in jurisdictions where you've got an executive president, whether we like it or not, there are still ceremonial functions.
Absolutely.
So the ceremonial bit is that people really want it, not a ceremonial president.
Yes.
They don't want a governor general equivalent to a certain extent.
Yes.
What they want is someone that embodies a high level of accountability. At the same time, somebody that when you put that person in place, they have been checked already, for argument's sake, by the Integrity Commission. Their declaration about who they are and etc. So we don't have this sort of thing. So therefore, the ceremonial bit, as you mentioned, should just be a part of the process, as any prime minister can do that. Any president can do that. Can flow with the ceremonial bit as well. Thanks.
No single person can deliver the level of accountability that people are asking for. No single person. And unless and until you are prepared to be accountable to yourself and be integrous in yourself, It's a difficult ask for people. It doesn't matter what office that you create, the offices will be filled by people. So what is really inspiring us is a system of government that has appropriate checks and balances institutionally, and hopefully that when you set qualification for holding the office, people will display the highest level of personal and professional integrity as office holders. Yes, Madam Councillor, I see the furrowed brows and the look of impatience.
I'm trying to hide my expression.
I see.
Good afternoon, everyone, and
Yes.
thank you so much, Minister, for doing
Yeah.
this. I have loads of questions, but I'm going to focus on just one at the moment. In terms of the process and the involvement that we would like the Jamaican public to have, the voters, this comes with education and information. And the feedback that we have been getting is there are a lot of Jamaicans, even myself, when we undertook the town hall meetings here in the UK, we had to go back and read the Constitution in order to understand some of it. And we were no experts except one on the committee.
Yes.
And so the question I'm asking you is, what is the committee's recommendation? What are they envisioning in terms of educating the Jamaican people about the process? And the follow-up question to that is, how long is the process for this first phase?
Good questions, Madam Councillor. It's a sad reality that we do have a deficit, a knowledge deficit. And even among learned lawyers, there is still a deficit in knowledge about constitutional affairs and the Constitution of Jamaica. It has not been helped by the absence of civics in our school for a long time. We are not going to fill that knowledge gap overnight. It's almost going to require lifelong reordering of what is taught in schools, what discussions we have. So we are beginning by educating on the provisions of the Constitution that require the referendum to change those provisions, and also the process of change. I've had constituents say to me, Madam MP, I thought by what you mean by referendum is that you just gather the people and ask them what they think. And those who say this is what they want and that is what they want, you just tick it off. And that's how you get it. Absolutely not. So there is a very specific process that the Constitution sets out for changing the Constitution. And because the Constitution says that it is the supreme law of the land, and any other law that is passed that is inconsistent with it will be null and void. It's not just substantial inconsistence, but also procedural inconsistence. So we can't change the Constitution other than by the process that the Constitution itself sets out. And that is written at Section 49, a very complex provision. Constitution of Jamaica has 3 types of provisions. And we categorize them by virtue of the process that is required to change them. So the simplest provisions, not simple, to change them require a vote of the majority of all members of Parliament, both houses. This is separate from a majority of those present and voting. When you're passing ordinary laws, the law can be passed by the majority of the parliamentarians present and voting once you have a quorum. If you're amending the Constitution, you need the majority of the total number of members of the Parliament. So that's what you call the absolute majority. And then you have the entrenched provisions. And the Constitution sets out a process, because you don't change it easily. You have to table the bill, and a bill goes through a set of processes, different stages. When you table it, that's when you have a first reading of the bill. And when you are going to start the debate on the bill, that's when you have a second reading. And then after you have debated it and you pass it, you have a third reading. All right, so the Constitution says, for the provisions that are entrenched, between the tabling, the first reading of the bill, and the beginning of the debate on the whole bill, the second reading, 3 months must elapse. It must lay on the table of Parliament in 3 months. Among the many reasons for that is to ensure that all parliamentarians are fully aware of the content of the bill, and that you can also have discussions in the wider public, so it's not a rush. It's designed to be a slow process, because the framers of the Constitution, in their wisdom, give a high level of regard to those provisions, and they are critical to the ordering of the institutions of government. So that's 3 months. And then after you have debated it, now a constitutional bill to abolish the monarchy, I guarantee that practically every member of Parliament will want to speak on. Just imagine how long it will take for 63 members to each make their contribution. And as an exception, the Speaker can also participate in this debate. And then it says after you complete that debate, 3 months will have to pass before you can vote on it. So already you would have half a year of dead time that you can do nothing on. You probably would have a month or 2 of debate in the Parliament, sitting in order to accommodate all who would want to speak. So I would say, at a minimum, most ambitious, for it to go through the House, it would be 9 to 12 months. That's a year, and that's ambitious. And then it has to go to the Senate, where the 21 senators themselves will debate it and pass. And that will take its own time. So it is a slow process by design. And then after that, there is a minimum and a maximum period before it goes to the referendum. The Electoral Commission of Jamaica will have to prepare the nation for the holding of the referendum. It's like an election. The only thing is that you're not voting to choose a representative. You're voting to choose between a status quo and the change that is to come. And there are specific rules around the design of the ballot for referendum and educating the people. So we can educate all we want today about what will come. We will still have to do it again, specifically in relation to the bill. So for all who are saying, education, it's a good call. But I want you to bear in mind that education for the constitutional reform process will have to be very specific and tailored to the content of the bill that the people will be asked to vote on. So I don't want you to get carried away by the call for education, without understanding that we can educate on any of many things. There are so many questions that will arise, so many answers demanded, and they may not relate specifically to the content of the bill. So right now we're having general conversations for people to get an understanding of the process, and then we will have to go very deep and specific once we have decided on the content of the bill. And the content of the bill is being informed by the views of the people as we read them. And that's why we have the committee that is operating in an advisory and an oversight role. We have actually taken stock of all the issues that have been published orally and in writing, and we have collated them, we printed them in the newspaper, and we ask, if you have any view that is not represented by these issues, let us know. Constitutional reform at mlca.gov.jm is the specific email address that you can send your questions and your queries to, and we have the social media pages, and we have the ministry itself that will answer the queries. We have the missions, including the High Commission here, that will convey any of the many issues that arise. So we have to get into a discipline around the process. And Jamaicans are free-spirited. They like everything to come at large and being flung from all over the place. And that can be time-consuming and can divert attention away from the work at the center. So as minister, I have to be very, very careful, because a bill does not get into Parliament from a member of the diaspora. A bill does not get into Parliament from a member of the public. The Parliament is the lawmaking institution. It is the lawmaking branch of government, constitutionally empowered to pass laws for peace, order, and good government. So all of the talk, I have to be listening to the music beneath the noise so I don't get distracted, because we Jamaicans want what you want, and then you are quick to misinterpret an effort to keep focus as being dismissive when it's quite to the contrary, because none of us can achieve our goals in a state of chaos and confusion. And it's going to be very important for members of the diaspora to understand that not all of the issues that you have with government will be addressed or can be addressed through the constitutional reform process. Trust is low, but you will have to trust people in authority to guide, not blindly, but responsibly so, to guide the process. That's why you get elected, and you're not just plucked out, you go through a process. Right? Can I follow up? Well, there are many others. I will leave that to the moderator.
All right. We'll be coming back to you. We have two on the floor, but before we go there, I will invite Ms. Nitz Taylor to make her remarks or ask a specific question as indicated too.
Minister, on the topic of referendum, I know that they're expensive to run, and so I was wondering if there's any consideration being given to this being done at around the time of a general election when the entire nation is mobilized and focused on important matters to them. So perhaps one day for the general election and the following day for the referendum.
Excellent question. To hold an election, whether it's an election of representatives for the House of Representatives, or to determine a change away from the monarchy to the republic, is going to be expensive. It's practically the cost of holding a general election, and I think that's a couple or a few billions of Jamaican dollars, because the integrity of the process is important. So this is one of the issues that the committee will have to deliberate on. Do we hold the referendum at the same time we're holding general elections? Those who have researched the matter and have greater insight say that it is unwise to do so. Because, and especially in the Jamaican context, you go to election competing. When you're going to write your new constitution, you have to go collaborating. And you want, it's going to be a rare occasion where the two political parties forming the parliament will be going to the people with one voice. It is major work in progress, because already we will have the members of the opposition in the committee, and we work very productively in the committee, taking a particular position, and then their party leader takes a different stance. I'm not necessarily troubled by that, disruptive as it is. Such is the nature of politics. All right? But opposition and government have been working productively through the medium of the Constitutional Reform Committee. And we bear in mind that the representatives answer to the institution of the party and also to the supporters. So we have to leave space for the dissonance, and we have to leave space for the politicking. But hopefully by the time we shall have completed the deliberations, make the recommendations, we will be going to the people with one voice. So the cost, we can't measure it entirely in dollars and cents. It is expensive. It's a price that we will have to pay. Bottom line. Bottom line.
Thank you, Minister. All right. I have two from the floor, actually three from the floor, and we're going to be taking one from the wider diaspora that has emailed this in. What are specific issues or challenges in the current constitution that have prompted the need for the reform?
Like I say, it's really about reflecting on what we have achieved since independence and furthering the goals of independence. It was never intended to stop where we are now when political independence took place in 1962. It was taking place in stages, but the process that is set in the Constitution is a complex process, and our government and our people have had more immediate issues on their minds, always pushing the constitutional reform work further down the road. But you can push it so far and no more. Jamaicans are a proud people, and as a nation state in the community of nations, we need a head of state that is reflective of the national identity and our people. And unfortunately, we do not have that in King Charles III, King of Jamaica, King of the United Kingdom.
Hello. My name is Lorna Green. I intend to be really brief. I understand that it's quite a complex and lengthy process. Have we learned anything, or can we learn anything from Barbados?
Barbados' process was entirely different. They did not require a referendum to make the change. So people are looking on, and they have seen that Barbados did it very quickly, and Barbados did it at a time when there was no opposition in their parliament. All right? So there's no opposition to contend with. That's just what Madame Mia says, carries, and that's it. Right? So if there is something to learn from Barbados, I don't know that I would want a single party ruling Jamaica. Right? And unfortunately, their constitutional provision is different. So there are a number of things you must take away from here, you know. Number of things. One, ceremonial duties are important. Don't scoff at them. They're important in the affairs of a nation. Barbados has a different provision than ours. And what is inspiring this move is for us to sort out more meaningfully what it is that we stand for as Jamaican. Ultimately, the goal is to write a new constitution for Jamaica, but it is being done in phases. So we will begin by amending the existing constitution. We also have a very ambitious goal of Jamaicanizing the independence constitution. What do we mean by that? Have it passed by the Parliament of Jamaica and approved by the people of Jamaica. Because unfortunately, although the Constitution of Jamaica was made in Jamaica, by Jamaicans, you hear people say it was foisted on us. Not true. Made in Jamaica. For those of you who are interested in history, you can get the recordings of the debates in the Parliament when the Constitution was being made. Fascinating, fascinating to see what inspired the perspectives and all of that. But unfortunately, after the Constitution was made in Jamaica, it was not passed by the Jamaican Parliament. It came into effect by a real low-level process as an order in council here in England. And you know, I mean, I'm trying to understand why. Because before that, the Jamaica Independence Act was passed here in England and by the Jamaican Legislative Assembly on the same day. The same day, as an act of the Jamaican Parliament and as an act of the UK Parliament, and yet the Constitution as the supreme law of the land came in by an inferior process. That we have to write. There is no way we can continue to have our Constitution being a schedule to the British Order in Council. And since it was made in Jamaica, we want to have the Parliament adopt it as our independence constitution, and the people approve it, and we make the changes that will suit us. Keep what has worked well for us and change out what hasn't. Because in all of this, we do not want to tinker with the stability in our democracy. And we don't also just want to keep the stability that hasn't worked well and delivered results for the people and the government of Jamaica. So it's a very difficult balancing act that needs to be very carefully and expertly managed.
Yeah, just allow me to bring another perspective.
Yes.
Of this, okay.
Of course, absolutely.
As a Pan-Africanist born in Jamaica,
Yes.
I'm clear about the importance of being part of a larger community, whether it's economic, but primarily economic. Within the context of the reform, what consideration or conversation is that about Jamaica becoming part of a community, whether it's economic or whatever?
Can I tell you something? I literally came over from North Africa last night. I was in Morocco for the annual meetings of the World Bank and the IMF. I led the parliamentary network on the IMF and the World Bank, and I discovered that in different parts of Africa, some of them view Jamaica as the motherland that they want to go to. And I was telling them that in Jamaica, many view African continent as the motherland to go to. Interesting relations. Well, but Jamaica is part of numerous groupings. I do not think it's realistic to have Jamaica being appendage to the African continent, not at this time. But I think what is important is for us to be able to celebrate our ethnicities and do so with pride. I was just so amazed at what I saw in Morocco, where the old and the new coexist harmoniously. I mean, you see the Bentley and the Rolls Royce, and you see the mule and cart, and you see the donkey. You see the streets and you see the animals. You see the old and the new. And I couldn't help but think how unfortunate it is that our brains have been colonized and remain colonized after our ancestors have been freed, because we have a very unhealthy relationship with our past. And if there is anything we know, is that we cannot step back into the past and change anything about it. What we can do is learn from it, get an appreciation of where we are, and then plan for the future, avoid the mistakes. And if that which we saw being done by the colonizers that oppress our people, we should never do it, and then replace the colonizers. You know, and it's kind of how some Jamaicans view government, a Babylon system, where our people, through their mentality and their treatment of each other, have replaced the colonizers. No, that's the kind of thing we want to mash down. Take the train to Zion. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you're not going to hear me making up much noise, but this is serious work. Jamaica, for a small nation, punches so far above its weight. We are known and respected wherever we go. For the size of our people, and I was telling them in Morocco, careful now when you meet a Jamaican, you know, because we're a rare breed. It's not many millions of us. Rare breed, even if you count Jamaicans on the island and those in the diaspora. And we have infected and affected the rest of the world in a positive way. Through this process, it's not going to happen overnight. It is my hope that we will move the nation from pockets of excellence to mainstreaming excellence in our culture. But we're going to have to dance a different dance between rights and responsibilities. We're going to have to understand that you can't achieve the goals in a free-for-all chaotic space. We're going to have to listen to each other. We're going to have to be guided by each other. We're going to have to respect self and other in order for us to materialize and actualize the way that we can, because we have seen glimpses of the potential of a great nation. So, a serious business, this. Right? And then the other thing is, we wanted the language of the people to be respected and for no man to feel that they are inferior because them talk the talk of the people. Right? You can pluck people out of their homelands and then make them feel inferior for not speaking your language that you have not taught to them. Mind you, of course, the English language is the language of the international community and the business, and we want to prepare our people to be competitive. But we want them to know if we language, also the language of we people. You understand? Yes. Yes, sir. Yes.
Minister Ford, thank you for the work you're doing, and I wish the committee all the best. I'm going to Well, I'm not sure it's a question. You'll tell me where it falls, if it's applicable or not. And I did civics over 45 years ago. And so I fall in that category of probably being a lot deficit. But one of the things I've always been concerned about, and as we're talking about constitutional reform, is the title of opposition in our government. I could never, even as a teenager growing up, why do we call a very valuable group of people who are doing valuable work in our government?
I'm going to write it down, because believe me, I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So let me write
See,
it
I
down.
haven't said it yet, but she got it. Isn't that lovely? I could never understand why we call that sector within our government opposition, because opposition to me is a negative connotation, a negative title. These are very bright, talented,
What you say your name
people.
again?
My name is Angela Skerritt. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Angela Skerritt. No, man, you have to take credit for this one.
So, seeing that
But
we're doing-
Skerritt is an Eastern Caribbean name.
Yes, my husband is from Montserrat.
Say no more. I'm not fasting in your business. Say no more. I don't mean to fast in your business.
Yeah, so I have always struggled with that title, and I would love for us to find another title that is befitting of that very prestigious office and function within our government. So
You know-
can we think about in the reform, and as Jamaicans always changing the world, that we find a more befitting title for that sector of
Angela, if I
government?
were on another stage, I'd say, selector, pull up that one. Prom. Because what an important contribution. You are so right. You're so right. I don't at this time know why it's labeled government and opposition. I only know it's not unique to Jamaica. But you are right. Why should those who really are set to hold to account be viewed as opposing? Whose interest is being opposed? It's certainly not supposed to be the people's interest. Thank you for that. I'll take it back to the committee, and I know members of the committee may be watching, and I will throw it out for wider consideration. And I'm going to ask that perhaps you give some thought to it. If you want to formulate something and send to the committee for our consideration, I'll be so happy to receive it and have it deliberated on. I like that. I like that.
I think we definitely need a sound effect and a round of applause, a louder round of applause for that one. I believe so.
No, sir. We say prom.
Yes, man.
Nice.
We have
I like
a
it.
few more from the floor, and
And the
Minister,
long list sent in
right?
before.
And a very long list, but we're mindful of the time.
Yes.
And what is going to be happening now, all right? We're going to be taking charge of this part. We have 3 from the floor, and we're going to take 2 from the
Right.
other platforms.
Yes.
But just be reminded that constitutional reform, right, though it is complex, it is necessary to have the discussions around it. So while you're thinking about your question and staying on topic, the impact of constitutional reform on the diaspora here in the United Kingdom, try to think, formulate questions for the minister to respond as it relates to the impact of the constitutional reform on the diaspora.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
As a Pan-Africanist, like Marcus Garvey, in 1962, I represented my school in what was called Jamaica Political Independence.
Okay.
The marching and so on. But just a few years after, that Monday, the 6th of August, 1962, that I remember vividly, the vast majority of people in Jamaica found out that it was simply a change from colonialism to neocolonialism, whereby the head of state was not one of us, but was from the very people who benefited by their exploitation and genocidal activities of our African people. Constitutional reform is extremely and absolutely important. I put it to you, what provisions are being made to ensure that the people of Jamaica are properly educated away from this mental slavery, bearing in mind what Marcus Garvey said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our mind. Bob Marley merely used the words of Marcus Garvey. Because it is absolutely important that not just the politicians, meaning MPs and councillors, etc., are part of this process, but every one of us as Jamaicans should be aware of the stakes that are involved. And I remember when I was going to Kingston Technical High School, we had civics. I heard you mentioning civics, and it's really tragic that civics has been dropped. It's very important. So, what provisions are you going to make for this mass education to get away from the racist miseducation that our people are still suffering from, and which is greatly responsible for the self-hatred and a lot of the bloodshed that occurs in Jamaica, of us not seeing each other as brothers and sisters and loving each other. Thank you.
Tough question. Tough question. Education is not an event, it's a process. And even people who are well schooled sometimes are not well educated. And even in societies with the best institutions, we have a problem of self-hatred. Boy, it looked like them things they set from the beginning of time, Cain and Abel within family. So we see examples of what not to be, and we also see examples of what we aspire for. I can't tell you that I have a single answer to the question. What I can say is that there is no dispute on the importance of it. You have the family, which is, they say, the first and the basic institution of society. It is at that place that you should first learn a thing or two. Your sense of identity, beginning with who you come from, who your clan is, who your tribe is. And then you know, so when you go out in the world, you're not going out alone, whether your clan is large or it's small. And many of that is missing for all kinds of reasons. A polyamorous society where people engage in irresponsible conduct, they don't know who the father is, so they can't give the sense of identity in that direction. At least the mother bears the child, so you can't be removed from it. It's a complex problem. And then you have people who are set to deliver a curriculum, and they too have failed miserably. Jamaica now is undergoing the most significant transformation in the education sector. And even before we get anywhere, a pure opposition inside, the people who are supposed to be the drivers of it, they are so wedded, some of them, from the reports of the discussions, to the system that is aligned for a different kind of outcome. You know, I don't have the answer, you know. I don't have the answer, except that I know that the institutions of government and what we write in our laws must provide for certain things. So already we have guaranteed a right to education at the primary level. We may have to expand it a little more, but the outcomes that we're looking for will require all of us being part of that work. Imagine that our philosophers, Garvey and Marley himself, have impacted the whole world. The One Love song was the song of the millennium. We have enough to know that a lot of the things that we pray and practice shouldn't be. The selfishness, maybe it's a part of our broken humanity. But we do have examples of other nations who have gotten it a little better. So for me, I think we may have to go through a truth and reconciliation in our nation. We may have to do it as part of this process. It's something that I'm looking very closely at. And then we have to look at how the institutions of society, not just the institution of government, because sometimes we don't want to take responsibility for anything and government must do everything. But who make up government? Who you think work in government? I tell people, the face of government that you see is going to be the face of the person delivering the service of government. So when you go to tax office, and if you meet someone who had the worst night and morning, or has the whole world, so to speak, on his or her head, and is not able to compartmentalize and serve you efficiently and effectively, you are going to go away feeling that the face of government is cruel and uncaring and inefficient. And you think how you call for Prime Minister Holness to deal with that. And no Prime Minister Holness there the window handle it. So even us, in the approach we take when we raise complaints, we need to rethink it. The place to spot the fault is right where it has occurred. And the place to remedy it is right where it occurred. Having come into politics, representational politics, I realized that the political directorate is a small part of government, a very important part, but a small part. As Attorney General, I had to deal with cases where the political directorate may want one outcome, but the person who is given the power to act, if that power is given only to you, I can't exercise it. My exercise of it would be ultra vires and unlawful. So we have to get our institutions and our people to understand what it means to be the face of government, what it means to discharge the functions of government. And that's another big part of the reform that going, probably, let me say, hell and powder house going broke loose. Because people who aspire to work in government and be the face of government will have to have a certain level of consciousness here, right? Mindset. Absolutely. So, what is your name, sir?
Mandingo.
Mandingo? Are your real name that?
Literally meaning mother child.
No, seriously.
My African identity.
Okay, so that's... No, man, you're entitled to the name you call yourself. I mean, have you formalized it, or is it...
It is formalized.
All right, Mandingo.
Born in Jamaica.
Mandingo, I have learned that the African continent is so diverse that Africans don't identify solely as Africans. They identify according to their tribes. It's really complex. No, I'm not generalizing. I'm not generalizing. I didn't say only. I didn't say only. I didn't say only. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We all have a tribe. Whether you associate it, your family are the tribe.
No, the English don't say tribe. The French don't say tribe. It's a racism where they use for us as Africans.
Tribe? Tribe is a racist word?
No, I don't belong to that.
No, man. Well, whatever it is, whatever it is. Sometimes people turn things prejudicially, but my own training tells me that I must look for the root of the word. Root of the word. You know what I discovered? You know what I discovered on the trip to Morocco? Salt was used at one time to pay for things. Salary, that's it. Salary come from salt. So you can't read being the salt of the earth the same way after you have become aware.
It's on Latin salarium, salt.
There you go. But But a lot of people don't know it, and they don't understand the references and understand what it means when things are being described. So education, yes. Education, yes. It would be unrealistic to expect that everything that needs to be taught and understood can be done in a single event and can be done by a single institution and can be done only by the government. We really have to get back to the basics and see where things have worked well. We can't just look on and say, we want that. I hear people all the time say they want what Singapore have. If we are prepared to subject ourselves to the level of discipline that Singaporeans are embrace, then just maybe we could achieve a little more on some front, eh? But we want it all at once. You may be able to have it all, but you can't have it all at once.
But there is no progress without discipline.
There is no
Well,
give
I
without
believe,
take.
Minister, we could go on and on.
But you see how, but you see, he has raised the issue of education in a way that we have to be careful, because I hear some may say, educate before you do it, without appreciation that's a lifelong process. And the fact that education is required, is necessary, doesn't mean that we can't do the other things while we work it out. And that's another thing I want you to understand. When you call for it, it's a right call, but it comes as a process and in various form. So we have to kind of run the streams in parallel.
So, Minister, right, as it relates to you in representational politics, okay? And this question comes from Tara Johnson. All right, and she's on the Global Diaspora Youth Council. Less than 20 countries in the world completely prohibit abortion by law, including Iraq, Haiti, and Jamaica. You have spoken in Parliament about your personal reasons to prevent Jamaican women from accessing safe and legal terminations. An estimated 22,000, in bracket, illegal abortions occur in Jamaica annually, and the most disadvantaged women are at high risk of injury and death from procedures which often follow incest and assault. As a lawmaker, what legislation would you propose to reduce harm to those women?
Thank you. First of all, my personal position is not preventing not a soul from accessing anything. So the question is a little falsely premised, important as the subject matter is. Marlene Malahoo Fort's position, not preventing anybody from anything, right? I have declared my personal position, and if we can't stand for something from a personal reason, we'll fall for nothing. But put personal aside. I am not in office in a personal capacity. I'm in office in a representative capacity. And I have an appreciation of the public health considerations on this issue of abortion. I understand it. Jamaican law does not outright prohibit abortion. It restricts it in certain contexts. And I know that it is a thorny issue. I know that sexual abuse is real, and it's difficult to deal with the product of abuse. All right? So it's a conversation that is being had, but it does not become helpful when it is phrased in the way that the question has been framed. Because when you mix up untrue statement alongside true statement, you get all kind of confusion in it. So that I've said abortion is not going to be my personal agenda. It's not. We all have different personal agenda. There is a reason for that personally, but make no mistake, I do understand very clearly my role as a legislator, and I do understand the public health and policy considerations. I'm not making decisions on behalf of people who share or don't share my private morality. I'm making decisions on behalf of all Jamaicans, and I have to do justice to them regardless of whether we share views on private morality or not. So tell the sisters, say, we'll come again with the question and we can talk about the issue. All
Thank
right?
you, Minister. We have two more from the floor, and then we'll take one from the social media platform as well as YouTube. And it's great that we are interacting, we're providing transparency and inclusion. And with us we have the youngsters, and it is always a pleasure when the youngsters turn up to these public forum, educational forum, and she's got a question for you.
Hello, everyone. Wait, can you hear me? Hello, Hello, everyone, and my name is Hisham, and I have a question today. My question is, how does the government intend to balance tradition and heritage with the need of moderation in the Constitution?
How does it intend to?
How does the government intend to balance tradition and heritage with the need of moderation in the Constitution?
Tradition, the heritage
And modernization of the Constitution.
Balancing act. So at the outset, we have decided that we will keep the best of the system that has worked for Jamaica, that we have become familiar with, that has had others look on Jamaica admiringly. You know, there are, I think, like so many other nations in the Western world, we fall victim to the push and pull. You know, we see things and we think they are modern. But you know what I'm discovering? A lot of the things that we have discarded as old-fashioned, they have been recycled and they're coming to us at a higher price, because those who have researched it realize that those ways of life were really healthy ways of life. So I'll give you a small example. Right? We used to sweep the floor and we sweep the yard and it caused our muscles to move, and we have replaced that with the robot that you just let it go. And then we have problems with the limbs and the movements, and those who are researching have told you that a lot of the chores that used to be done actually ensure that the system, your body worked well. A balancing act. This is a conversation that we Jamaicans will have to have, because the thing about Constitution is that it should be an expression of the people and the will of the people. It's a people saying this is a contract that we are prepared to be bound by. So we, the representatives who are given formal places of authority, we listen to the people, we explain, we try to interpret what they are saying, and then we put it back to the people for approval. So it's many conversations that we will have to have in Jamaica. What are we going to keep? What are we going to throw away? What are we going to have coexisting? And as we look comparatively, we see societies, not necessarily in the Western world, who are doing so well at keeping their traditions alongside the modernity. And the society is not conflicted about it. Each is given its space, and it's part of being able to choose and, you know, making that decision as to what is in your best interest. So this is but a small piece of the conversation that we're having. Jamaica is a blessed nation. We have many issues, we have many problems, but we also have many blessings. And it is part of the underlying philosophy that I bring to the leadership of the ministry, an understanding that the nation with a problem must go through a process together to become the nation with a solution. And insofar as the reform ideals are, it's really an understanding that the best form of government embraces a balance of power, as a just government must be founded on a system of checks and balances. And then those who have studied the thing and have looked at how the countries have done it tell you that the best form of government, which embraces the balance of power founded on a system of checks and balance, has a combination of features. So we're currently a monarchy, and they tell you that the state, the government of the state, with a proper balance of power, founded on a system of checks and balances, has an executive with preeminent and royal qualities. And then it grants certain powers to leading citizens and to the people according to their wishes and their judgment. And then you avoid the tragedy, because if you have a constitution that is based on only one form, what you will have is that it frequently decays into a corresponding degenerate form. And my Pan-African brother Mandingo will understand and relate to that. So you have the king becoming a tyrant, if it's only one form, if it's not properly balanced. And then you will have the aristocracy turning into factional oligarchy, becoming abusive of the people. And then you will have democracy becoming mob rule and anarchy. So philosophically, our approach is to balance the thing, so we don't have a degenerative form that it is going to decay into, taking into account the experience of the people so far. So be assured that the process is guided by deep thinking. And it is, we're listening very closely to what Jamaicans at home and in the diaspora are saying. They want the Jamaican nation state to be identified with and to be symbolic of. The work is being done in stages. It's not going to happen overnight. All of it not going to come. It's going to take us some time to work it out. But we are doing it in earnest. And we certainly want your positive voice as influencers and on your families back home, that even if you don't understand it, and know, there's a lot that we're working with, but we have to take the steps little by little, not to stand still, but to go forward, even if we only take one step at a time. Because you may find, that you take 2 steps forward, and sometimes you might even have to go back. But what you don't want is to go back beyond a certain point. You have to make the progress. It's a lot of work that is ahead of us at a nation. The commitment of the Wholeness Administration is to keep our Jamaicans abreast, and that is why conversations like this is taking place. Thankfully, we have the medium of technology, the various social media platforms that we can continue the dialogue. When the process is a little more advanced, I will come back and we'll have a little more in-person talk. But there are some things that you will have to remember. If you qualify to vote in Jamaica, you have to enumerate to participate in the referendum process to come. All right? And I want you to bring your voices wherever you are to say the Babylon system that has Jamaicans needing a visa to access the court right now, that's not good. And this is without prejudice to the decision that will be taken on which final court. I don't want the issue to be conflated, and I don't want you to think that by raising this issue, I'm making any predetermination of which final court will be in the Republic. Not at all, because whatever decision is taken must serve the best interest of the people of Jamaica. All right? Process, not an event. It's going to take some time. There is a very well, that's what republic is, res publica, property of the people, right? But we can't have anarchy and mob rule, and that's why we combine the thing, That's right.
Minister, I'm going to invite you to have a sip. Take a sip of your water, right? So you have been educated. The information that has been shared, you have formulated questions for greater impact. And also, we'll have what we call the summary section. And I'm going to ask the audience not to ask summary questions, because there's going to be one question that will be asked that will summarize just about everything. So if it is specific to a particular thing or a gap, something that you may have misunderstood, then you stay on topic with that. Mrs. Dolores Cooper asked a question, very apt question, as it relates to the vote on the referendum, if it is negative, what then? You don't have to respond.
No, but it's a really good question, because if the vote on the referendum is negative, we're going to be left with a constitutional monarchy. And let me tell you something. We have to have a different conversation with His Majesty's government about the policies towards the people of the realm, because what currently exists cannot continue. Cannot continue for Jamaicans here in the realm and for Jamaicans at home. And we did not produce the Constitution on our own. We did not protect the role of the monarchy so deeply on our own. So whatever the outcome, the British government will have to dance with us.
I want to check what is in that water, because I tell you to take a sip. You realize it's a different response? Tell about the water.
That is one of the issues I've had to consider from day one when I was charged with responsibility, because our people are distrustful of government, and sometimes even when those who are exercising leadership are doing what is right by the people, people are distrustful, and it's after the fact that they realize it. And if me did know, come last. If me did know, right? Too late. We have too many examples of that.
And we close out from the external platform, and then we'll take the final three from the floor in... Whoa, look at the hands. So it's going to be your call as to how many you can accommodate. I know there will be a recording that people can review. So we already have three across this row, but we wanted to end with Silburn, actually, right? So, you don't have a question. It's not a question. It's a demand. All right, so we keep the demand a little bit later. So this question...
Demand away.
All right, so what mechanisms will be in place to ensure that the reformed constitution remains adaptable to future societal changes and needs? You spoke about it earlier about from independence. And
a constitution is a living document, and it continues to speak. But you really don't want to tinker with your highest law too often, eh? What you want is to ensure that it is framed in a way that it can be applied, taking into account changes in society. So how you frame it is going to be critical. But when you set your contract, you need time for it to work. You can't be fiddling with it too much. So we know that the Independence Constitution could never be the final document. It has important provisions that have enabled us to a point, and other things that have to be changed along the way. But make no mistake, your Constitution is not something to fiddle with. But you have to revisit it periodically, and you have to frame it in a way that it can be interpreted in different contexts. It's a living document. It continues to speak.
Thank you, Minister. All right, in terms of the hands on the floor, please let me see them again. Okay.
Minister, thank you very much for the eloquent way in which you express and answer our questions. And I'd like to thank most of the people here, everyone here that has asked questions so far. They've been very, very beneficial. Just to touch on my two brothers' point about Pan-Africanism, I just want to say that what I believe the reason, and I'm going to ask a question, the reason for our notability abroad, the way that we stand out as a small nation, it could be truly because of what Marcus Garvey taught us. And I think it's a root of how we are. We became people in Britain that...
Up ye mighty race. You can accomplish.
And I think we're a confident race, and we're confident we can do anything the big boys can. America, Canada, Britain. And I think it came from this Garveyism. While I look at Africans, countries are teaching their people in Ghana about Marcus Garvey. I don't think Jamaica's doing enough. And I think, can we have him as our head of, as our symbolic head in the new constitution that we are forming? Father of the nation. And I think a lot of discipline will come from our people having that focus. Not everything, but focusing on things that he actually proposed for us. Thank you. gave us that unique.
I am not in a position to say whether Garvey can be given a place as a symbolic father of the nation of Jamaica, because views are very, very divided on it. However, what we do know is that Garveyism as a philosophy is rooted in a level of consciousness that, if understood, will go a long way in helping us to achieve the goal. But there has to be a philosophical underpinning to the nation of Jamaica and the Republic of Jamaica. And we have agreed at the earliest stage that we will have a preamble in the new constitution which will set out what it is that we stand for. And I know that Garvey's philosophy will feature in it. But after all, we are out of many, one people. We will have to find out who are the many and what's the one people that we are aspiring for. And is it really doable? What is the oneness that we truly want? Because as much as we identify as Jamaican, we're also quite individualistic, you know, and we're still fragmented. We have our work cut out for us. But this is what makes it exciting, to chart a new path. We want to avoid the mistakes of the past, and we want to strengthen that which we know will enable us, or better enable us, to achieve the goals that we set, and to really make this mighty people rise up and be noticed again and again, and take its rightful place in the community of nations. So, do you know that there is a particular reason for that? Because there was a law that was passed which mandated the ratio of Africans to white in the society. There is a particular law that is responsible for the ratio. No, but it's not sooner it starts. The decision has already been taken, and we're reformalizing aspect of the curriculum. So changes are taking place. Yeah.
One second. We take this comment here and then we go back to that. All right?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Minister, for the presentation. It's been very informative. My name is Arnold Williams. That's my birth name, but my African name is Abeku. Abeku. Just a few observations and one question. I think we've got an idea where the word Sister used earlier on, observation, where it came from. Because in the old Parliament centuries ago, the opponents were just one sword length apart from the opposition on the other side. And so they're always fighting each other. So that's where that came from. One of my observations, the cost, what are we going to lose, if any, financially, getting rid of the British monarchy, or what are we going to gain? That's just an oversight. And we talked about education, which is very important.
You have your questions written down?
Okay, yeah, just one question. The question is, in the change of the Constitution, what will be the ironclad protection from external sources like, large countries that will protect Jamaica and Jamaicans from interference, basically.
All right. Before I come to that, one of the members of the Constitutional Reform Committee, Senator the Honorable Tom Tavares Finson, who is President of the Senate, remarked at a Townhall meeting that the biggest fraud he saw on the Jamaican people is that Jamaica was granted independence. The king is protected, but he's left a personal representative in the office of Governor General that we have to pay for. So if we have to pay for a head of state, let that head of state be a head of state in his or her own right as a symbol of Jamaican identity and nationality. So I thought of it when you ask about what do we lose financially. And I say that to say that the monarchy does not even finance the office that personally represents him in Jamaica.
Yeah, you've got to pay yourself, you've got to pay for it yourself.
There you go. issue of non-interference in the sovereign affairs of the nation. There are some people who believe that might is right. Jamaica has been economically weak for a long time. And this is the first time that we are emerging with discipline in our fiscal affairs and stability in our economy. We're not out of the woods yet, but we have made massive progress to the point where the annual meetings that end today have celebrated and highlighted Jamaica as a special case to take note of within the international development and financial community. Across successive administrations, we have been able to bring a level of discipline to our fiscal affairs, which will now enable us to grow in a new and different way. And the growth is going to be important for us to be able to pay for the goods and services and to deliver what government should deliver to the people. I think for as long as you have interests and you have differences in the power dynamics, there will be influences. But Jamaica has been resolute in terms of respect for its sovereignty and also respecting other people's sovereignty. And I think that is why our foreign service has been held in such high distinction. We have had a very principled approach to foreign policy. We made a shift in order to give primacy to economic diplomacy to enable us to develop at a better place, better and faster rate, both qualitatively and quantitatively, to stabilize our economy. Because when you're weak economically is when you become the subject of manipulation and interference, and everything comes with strings attached. You know, it's hard to have a principled conversation when you are economically dependent. It's very hard. And that's why Prime Minister Holness, in his wisdom, and in ordering the affairs of government, have indicated that we have made enough progress now economically to start dealing with the ideals of our nation. Hence, the constitutional reform work that is unfolding in stages, because you don't want to get overly ambitious either and take on too much all at once. We still have a bureaucracy that has to deliver the changes. Politicians deal with the high ideals. We deal with the policy. We are not implementers. That's where you have other parts of government. So just taking it in stride, but being clear and clearer of what we stand for as a nation, not only Jamaicans at home, but Jamaicans abroad. And when we are clear about that, then we can stand resolute, not only for what we want, but against what we do not want. Work in progress.
Good afternoon. Let me congratulate you. I know you are the former Attorney General of Jamaica, but you're the first female. I believe in...
I'm not the first female Attorney General, second, but I am in a historic role as the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. It's the first time the portfolio has been created. So it's historic.
But thank you. Yes. I believe in inclusiveness. Really, really quickly, I'd like to know if you can answer, why hasn't this government, JLP government, given the third registered party in Jamaica, the UIC, a seat on the Constitutional Committee? And secondly, I'd also like to ask you, in relation to inclusiveness, many of us Jamaicans in the diaspora send lots of money to relatives and other entities in Jamaica. When will the JLP commit towards giving the diaspora the right to vote, those that are Jamaican citizens, and more importantly, the postal vote? Because I, for one, would clearly vote if I didn't have to travel. Thank you for your time.
All right, you have raised a number of issues. When will the Labour Party give the third registered party a place on the Constitutional Reform Committee? In constituting the Constitutional Reform Committee as an advisory and oversight committee, we didn't take the approach of being against anyone. We look at a workable size committee, because anything too big can be a little difficult to manage in an advisory and oversight role. So we know that we needed government and opposition on it. So we have government members and opposition, parliamentary opposition. And we know the thing need the will of the people. So we have representatives of the people who will then go out and canvass the view. So we have civil society rep that will speak to the group calling themselves and organizing a civil society. We have the faith-based community, and the faith-based community is without prejudice to whatever faith that you have. We have a youth advisory committee, and we have our experts. So it's not so much a for or against, but it was just coming up with a formula that could work. And the committee is empowered to form subcommittees, and subcommittees have been formed, and they include members who are not part of the committee. And we have had presentations from political movements coming to the committee. We have the National Democratic Movement, the NDM, that came, made a presentation, got to their time. So if the party you are referencing would like to come, by all means, I will ensure that they can make their presentation. All right? And the other thing had to do with the voting. So you can't have it all at once, eh? You can't have it all and all at once. So there are criteria for voting, citizenship criteria and other things. I know Jamaicans want to live anywhere and want to have the same role. Jamaicans at home say, I know so it's going on. You cannot want to live under the conditions that the rest of us live under. And you pick up yourself and go abroad and take advantage of opportunity, and then you want to be at the same place. What we have to look at is how to ensure that Jamaicans, wherever they are, can make a meaningful contribution. It may not come in the same form. So if you are qualified to vote, until and unless we have other than in-person voting, save up your money when election time comes. You have time to go vote. Don't bother complain that you want to vote and you want to vote here, so, right? Because we will work towards modernizing the process of voting. I don't know if the first place that we will get to is the remote voting, but Jamaica's electoral system is celebrated for integrity, and it didn't come overnight. It came after a lot of problems and a lot of concerns. We need to emerge with the Electoral Advisory Committee and the ECJ, and that we're going to put in the Constitution and put it beyond reach, right? So we have had our fair share of trouble, and we have also had solutions that have worked. And electoral reform in Jamaica has worked very well for Jamaicans, so much so that our elections are free and fair. It don't mean it without problem, you know. But it has integrity built in the system and the administration of it. All right? And it's part of the design. So sing and dance your dance, right? Sing and dance your dance. Come home if you want to vote, if you're still qualified to vote. And the last thing is that when I was in the foreign ministry, I used to say to Jamaicans, when you send home things to the family you leave behind, you are discharging your personal responsibility to them, and no government you're doing any favor. Don't tell me about your level of remittance that you send. It plays an important part for the foreign exchange, but first and foremost is your private money. Government don't intermingle with that. Government not take out anything. It goes from one individual to the next through a medium, right? And that's your personal responsibility to your family, your children, and whomever else you leave behind. Government no mix up in that. But the foreign exchange is important earning, but are your responsibility you're discharging.
All right, so we're on a roll with that one. Minister, we're on a roll with that one.
The service that is provided.
We're on a roll with that one. So it's only right that we have follow-up to that, then we can close. All right? You have a follow-up to that one. All right, there was a demand over here.
Is here TVing out Silburn TV, you know.
All right? And you haven't spoken just yet. All right?
Just one quick point, following up on that from about the Jamaicans in the diaspora, because this is a crucial point now. You are here in the UK. You are talking to diasporans and say, we are going to change Jamaica, we're going to have a new constitutional reform. can Jamaicans then make a difference in the UK? Can Jamaicans make a difference in Canada? What can we do? Because as the gentleman said, you got to save up your money and go to Jamaica. Many people can't do it. What can Jamaicans do then to make a difference?
Big question. Big question. Before I come to that, let me just say that in our foreign affairs, we have diaspora policy. And the time when I was there, and I'd have to be updated, it really was a three-plank. Cooperation between government and Jamaicans at home, and Jamaicans at home and Jamaicans abroad, and the government of Jamaica. That's the simple policy design of the diaspora policy. And we have a minister with responsibility for the diaspora portfolio. And under the Constitution of Jamaica, you can't be a minister outside of the Parliament right now. So there is already an opportunity for the interest of the diaspora to be brought to the fore. How it is done is another matter. I'm just talking about institutionally now. So we have an entire Ministry of Government with a portfolio subject matter dealing with diaspora relations, and that has happened across administration. And then I know we have the bodies, we have the advisory council. So institutionally, there is a mechanism. I don't think anyone in the diaspora should truthfully say that they wish to engage the government of Jamaica and they're unable to do so. You may be dissatisfied with the outcome, but institutionally, there is a well-structured process of diaspora engagement. The fact that we can have this organized by the mission, even at short notice, and not the most convenient time, is because of the diaspora, the primacy of the diaspora policy and an understanding that it is important for us to keep our Jamaicans abroad abreast of what your government is doing. Now, what you should do, I have a whole take on that, but as a minister of the government, I think I should discuss that matter with the Minister of Foreign Affairs before I put it out here, because I have some views on how Jamaicans in the United Kingdom can carry the voice of the reform that is taking place. And I already give you an insight, this Babylon business about the visa policy for our court should be frowned on by all Jamaicans, separate and apart from the issue of which court. Because until we make the change, this is the court that we have right now, right? So I don't want anybody to mistake what I'm saying. My position is not about which court it will be, it's which court it is right now, until we make a decision on that, all right? Right now, because change comes in process. If this is where we are, and this is where we want to go, there is a gap that you have to traverse. And right now, as our final court, access to justice, you don't put visa on the issue of access to justice. You don't mix up immigration policy with access to justice policy, not in the Commonwealth, as what we understand the Commonwealth to stand for.
So therefore, we can say that Jamaicans in the diaspora cannot vote in the reform. I'm just trying to say
No, all Jamaicans who are qualified to vote in elections for members of the House of Representatives and remain so qualified will be able to vote in the referendum. And the Constitution set it out, me. The Constitution section 49 tells you that the bill, after it is voted on by the two houses of Parliament, goes for approval to the people. And it's not just the general public, but it's the electors who vote.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to go because in 2004, 2006, I was one of those persons who brought it on the floor about Jamaicans getting overseas voting. And that has been going on for years upon years. So I'm just saying, please think about, I won't go into that now, but please really think about that.
That issue will have to be considered.
Yeah, it has been talked about from 2004. I was on the floor. 2006, I brought up Delano Franklin. I was the one
Let's be clear.
Yes.
I am not making any judgment call on the issue you have put on the table. I'm simply clarifying that those who are eligible
Yes.
to participate in the referendum to abolish the constitutional monarchy and establish the office of President of the Republic of Jamaica are those who are registered to vote.
And for the record,
The electors.
and for the record, that has always been in existence. ever
That is what the
since.
Constitution
Yes,
provides
I
for.
know,
In
yeah.
a deeply entrenched provision, it has not changed since independence, because we have not had a referendum. We have had changes in our electoral laws. We have had changes in that. And we note the call. The permanent secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a member of the Secretariat supporting the Constitutional Reform Committee, and she has raised not only the ask of Jamaicans who are eligible to vote but who are overseas to be able to vote overseas, but Jamaicans who are at our missions. That is not a matter I have portfolio responsibility for, but I certainly will advise on the constitutional implications of it. Because we don't have compulsory voting in Jamaica. What we have is that you have to be qualified and you register to vote, and then we have a whole system under the Representation of the People's Act. But I know that Jamaicans who live overseas are asking the government of Jamaica to consider making provisions for them to vote overseas.
Okay. Regarding the census, would any consideration be given to tying the census to voting rights? Because I think that should be placed under consideration as well. And so
The right to be
diaspora-
counted in the census? I'm not understanding the question.
No, because you might have persons who I've worked in other countries where some things are mandatory, like being counted in the census and so on. And if we want to be certain, like even mapping our diaspora and getting a proper count as to what constitutes the entire nation of Jamaica, which is abroad and
Got you know. All right. So this part of the work may not be what I'm understanding from Desiree is that we should consider a process that enables the government to map who comprises the nation of Jamaica, whether you live on the island of Jamaica or you live overseas. It's something that we should give more focused consideration to. I don't think it will happen in phase 1 of the reform, but the reform work is set out over a minimum of a decade. That is what Prime Minister Holness envisioned it, given all of the issues that needed to be canvassed, the conversations that need to take place, the institutional changes. So we are starting somewhere that will set us on a different plane, and it is my hope that the work will continue regardless of which party forms government, because it is important work. There's a lot to be done. We do not have compulsory voting in Jamaica, but you do have a right to vote once you are qualified to vote. So it's just to ensure that you meet the criteria that are set out, and then you register to vote, and when you are registered, you exercise the franchise.
All right, Minister. All right. So we've got a demand here, and we're gonna go back to the. No, absolutely. What did I forget you with your demand? We have Matunda here. Yeah, I understand, but I understand. So we'll take your demand as a breaker, and then we're going to close the session out. We have 2 individuals. We're going to be very, very brief, and if it means that we're going to have a personal connection with you outside of this forum, then that will be facilitated based on.
And for those who are asking for other fora, I will consider as appropriate.
All right, thank you. Your demand.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, Minister. We're delighted to have you. And mine is so brief. What I was asking is, can we have more of this somewhere else apart from London? Because I missed my train.
I'm
which
so
is why I was late.
Oh.
And that is my demand. Because as you can...
More of this.
Your brief has become very broad, and I'm sure that this discussion is being held all over the country.
I was duly warned that Jamaicans in the UK want in-person meeting with the minister, and they want the meetings not only in London. I was duly briefed. Every time a minister of government travels overseas, we have to go through a process of getting permission and all. I understand that this is a work of high importance to the government and the people of Jamaica, and I will do my best to facilitate. If you can't see me in person, we will utilize the virtual space, but I have taken note of the call for more in-person engagement, which you have merely echoed.
If not, disseminate.
Yes. Yes. We'll do my best. And when we have put the bill in Parliament, we will have to have a different kind of engagement. But you will have to tell me now how many of you, you'll have to tell the mission. Jamaicans like to hide information, you know. How many of you can vote? How many of you will be prepared to come to Jamaica to vote? So we can also take the data and see. Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't it be lovely if we had the means, right, to just... wouldn't it be lovely if there was a piece of Jamaica that still flies? Air Jamaica. Boy, just save up. Because the referendum is going to be a year and a half, even 2 years away. And the Constitution contemplates one parliament passing the bill and the referendum being done. So you have enough notice to prepare. If you are eligible to vote, prepare. Start saving.
Yes, mine is just a short question as well. I wanted to know, I've heard that they've said, if Jamaica become a republic, and they're owing the IMF any money, it could cause Jamaica a lot of issues and it could sink Jamaica. Could you explain that to me or to us?
A change in the form of government from a constitutional monarchy to a republic will not impact Jamaica's membership in the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank. Nation states go through a process of being members of the fund and the bank. I literally came from the annual meetings of the bank and the fund yesterday. I arrived here from North Africa in Morocco. First in 50 years, the bank and the fund have had their meeting on the African continent. It is not true that if Jamaica were to change its form of government from a constitutional monarchy to a republic, that it will lose its membership in the IMF. It is not true that it will have negative impact. It's not the form of government that impacts the relationship with the IMF right now. It's a particular set of process.
It wouldn't cost us a lot more for what we
It will
owe.
not. It will not have any difference in cost.
So it won't affect us in any way?
No, not at all. In fact, what you're able to access from the IMF depends a lot on the kind of reforms that you have undergone. And right now, Jamaica has done extremely well in the IMF reforms that it undertook, and the IMF is actually using Jamaica as a good example of discipline in bringing good changes in its financial affairs. Not true. Mash down that they lie.
And what about our rates that we have to pay?
It will not. The criteria that are set for the rate of access, those criteria have nothing to do with whether Jamaica is a republic or a constitutional monarchy. Not true.
Thank you, Minister. And we're going to close out with this one, and then you can have your summary, Minister. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to you, Minister. Thank you very much for all the information that you've provided, and it was impromptu.
This is a former assistant public defender.
This is Matanda Makula. I hear you on the consternation that you've expressed, and you've been expressing it certainly in the last 3 or so weeks about the visa situation. But twofold, wouldn't you agree with me that ultimately we are the ones who decide if we continue to appeal to the Privy Council?
Absolutely, yes.
And what I'm not understanding is why it is that it seems to me that there's an ideological desire to hold on to the Privy Council by the Jamaican Labour Party. I don't understand it. Anything else but the CCJ. That seems to be the guiding principle now. And has that position changed in light of what the polls have told us most recently? And my third question is certainly, if that position has changed, having regard to the fact that it's a simple process, not as technical or complicated a process as removing the king as head of state, why don't we go ahead and get it done if the position has changed?
Matunde, you have asked very important questions. It is true that views are divided in the Jamaica Labour Party and among supporters of the Jamaica Labour Party on the issue of which final court. There is no doubt about that. And I know also, without a doubt, that Prime Minister Holness, myself and the team, we're looking at the issue. We are examining the issue. We have taken note of the poll results, and the matter of which final court has to be fully ventilated. Whomever is having issues, whatever their views, their concerns are, I think nothing short of a full-blown discussion, candid and truthful discussion will suffice as we move forward. Some say not the CCJ, a Jamaican final court. Some say, but we're struggling on so many fronts to maintain or in court the institutions of the court and the infrastructure. We're already paying for it. Why not go there? Others are saying, you know, justice is a funny thing. The Caribbean is a small place. Jamaica is an even small place. They want justice at a distance. All of those views must be put on the table, and we will have to make a decision in the best interest of the Jamaican people. I know that my government knows that there is nowhere to disguise. I mean, Prime Minister Holness is well aware that the discussion on and the decision on which final court is one that will have to be met. It's only because we are when we began the process and right now where we are, we have decided to begin with those matters on which we have consensus and then work through those that you have to go through the different views on. Because if we don't start with what we have consensus on, chances are we're not going to get anything done. And I do believe that once we make the change from the monarchy to our own Jamaican head of state, other things may become clearer. Right now, the entire arrangements about our final court, they are cause for concern. If they're cause, you mean the arrangement now with the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council is what I'm speaking to. No. And when stock was last taken, some are saying, move away from the Privy Council. Actually, about 3 views. Keep the Privy Council until such time. There is no need to move from it while you move from the monarchy. They are separate issues. The institution is a court of its own. Others have used it. We can continue to use it. Investor confidence requires a certain level of that. There are many counter-arguments to that, and we have to put them out. Are you then saying that justice cannot be delivered locally? Are you questioning the quality of judgment? What about the level of respect that the CCJ has? I think these are issues that we will have to discuss. There is no getting around this matter. So we began with the phased approach by dealing with the referendum issues first. And then we work out the other issues. It doesn't mean that it has to be done that way. It doesn't mean that another approach could not be taken, but this is this is a process-based approach at this time. So the aim is, once we complete our deliberations and recommendations on the issues surrounding the President, Office of President, then we untable the bill to amend the existing constitution, to abolish the monarchy, deal with those matters. We will begin the work immediately on the issue of the final court and other issues that are entrenched but not deeply entrenched. So it's not, I do not foresee, certainly under my leadership, that there is going to be any gap. It's just that we can't do everything all at once. And in order to get this critical matter of the head of state done, we're starting there.
Can I suggest one thing? That the government starts telling the good news about what the CCJ has been doing over the last 15 or so years, and the fact that Barbados has acceded to its appellate capacity, and that the judges are judges of international standards. I think because this Jamaican Court of Appeal, final Court of Appeal that was once mooted by former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, that's really not a serious option, and we know that. So the government.
Matula, you are in this jurisdiction now. I think it's important that the views of the people are heard and listened to, and thankfully there is formal measurement of the views that is taking place, and we already have one set of polls. So let's, sometimes we get so enthusiastic and excited about outcomes, but we have to also remember procedural, the process. And the people have to take ownership of the issue. That's the only way we're going to be bound by it. So let us celebrate the fact that we are seriously on the road to republic. Let us celebrate that. We're not going to get all of the issues that must be addressed all at once. But let us celebrate it. Don't be cynical about it. No, I'm not. When I say you, I'm not talking you personally. I'm just saying it's important work. Everybody's not going to get what is immediately important to them, but we're sequencing and ordering the steps. If I tell you some of the issues that Jamaicans have raised in the consultative process, it's just testimony to the diversity of views and perspectives and the importance that is placed on different matters.
Thank you very much, Minister. A wealth of information being shared, and I believe that everyone inside this room, those on the various platforms, would have heard answers to questions tabled, those that were thought of but not spoken, and also thought-provoking responses that will extend the conversation beyond this room. And by virtue of having it on YouTube, we can revisit the link. And that is for sure and for certain a
just
reference.
Beg any element of mischief not to splice up anything and cut it and give a wrong impression, because I have been the unfortunate subject of that before.
They call it remix.
I come to the table for candid conversation. There is nothing to hide. We can't pass laws in secret. We're talking about what is happening.
And the great thing about it, I believe that it has been recorded seamlessly, so there's a point of reference that anything that has been spliced, check out.
There's a base, there's a reference.
So it's only up now that we
Who you think interested in that? They just want to know it gone viral. And then they see.
So, Minister, at this point, it's only up that we have our councillor just to the question that may ask you to summarize, and then we pass on to Ms. Desiree Taylor for closing.
Minister, thank you again. You have made us feel really safe inside this room. I wish you were the Minister of Security. I would have returned.
Set up comment.
I would have returned home very quickly.
Beware of those who shower praises.
No, this is a good one, actually. When you started the process, this is a new thing for you. When you look back of how far you have come, and the weight of what the government and what we've asked of you, what do you think your legacy, or what do you want your legacy to be?
Before you respond, think about it, Minister. So, the summary of comments from social media, and as a moderator, this is my favorite part of any session that I moderate. The summary. There are varying comments, but this is the summary. She a shot.
What that mean?
So, SHAAAT, shot. It means. That means you're doing. You're doing. It was an awesome session, thought-provoking, informative, proud to be a Jamaican, won't go home now. When my passport,
No cracks.
whole heap of fire, symbols, music sign, dancing, session shot, yes? So it's all complimentary, except for this one person who say, we couldn't hear the first part of the session. For some reason.
It's an early stage to answer the question of legacy, but I'll tell you what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about a government with integrity. I'm passionate about a government that serves the people effectively and efficiently and respectfully. And that is what I'm working towards for the government of Jamaica. I do not take the vote of the people lightly. I do not take the offices I hold as places of personal privilege. I know that they are high seats of responsibility that must be used for the best interest of the people. And I'm deeply passionate about Jamaica. Undivided in my loyalty. So it is my hope as a lawyer and someone who is rules-based that we will go through a process. It's going to be a long process of having laws on our books that our people will agree to be bound by. And so we can move the society from rampant lawlessness to effective lawfulness. That we can move from chaos and disorder to public order. And that government will honor the laws and respect the rights of the people, and that the people will honor their responsibilities to ensure that each can enjoy the rights that are guaranteed. And I believe that those who abuse power and do not serve the interest of the people should be allowed a space outside of formal authority to reflect on their ways and perhaps make amends. I think Jamaica is a great nation. It's a true privilege to be given the opportunity to serve in any role. And I'm looking forward to being a private citizen when I will call no one in high place for anything, which means that government must operate with a minimum level of efficiency and effectiveness that will enable me to live my life as an ordinary citizen and enjoy it as everyone else. I'm very excited about this process of constitutional reform. I think it's a righteous cause. And when you are on a righteous cause, it's going to be hard for anything to stand in the way of it. You expect opposition because life tells you that when you are setting out to achieve something good and righteous, there are the forces of darkness and evil that will want to divert you away. So if you see me appear to disregard some things, it's not for disrespect, but because I know I have to keep my head down and keep the focus in leading this process. And we know that Jamaicans are free-spirited. It's a flip side of the asset and the liability, the pros and the cons. And it's going to be important that I keep focus. We can't do it all at once. This is a process, and it will come in stages. We won't have the answers to everything all at once, but I'm asking you to keep faith, because we're a special people, and we must rise up and take our place in the community of nations. I will always bet on the Jamaican people, even if I tell you that I don't agree with what you do, even if I tell you that my approach is different, but I will always bet on the Jamaican people. And you in the diaspora, you have a special role to play. We are still refining the deliberations to emerge with the recommendations, and as soon as we go through, we will communicate in a timely way, and we will tell you specifically what we want you to do. But right now, start preparing yourself, enumerate to participate. Once you're eligible to vote, start saving your money so that you can be ready to come home and vote. And also, if you have a question, direct the question to us. Because this is the age of disinformation and misinformation, and people can be convincingly misleading. And we don't want you to be misled. We want you to verify the information. We want you to be thinking through the right set of facts. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot. But you do not have to suffer misinformation. Seek clarity, utilize the forum of the High Commission, pose your questions. I will ensure that they are answered, and you can always fact check. But thank you so much for taking the time from your Saturday afternoon to be here, and those online, thank you so much for your questions and your comments, and we will continue to talk. And as soon as I am able, I will see what Birmingham, you are from Birmingham. Yes, the message was sent ahead that Birmingham wants its own in-person meeting. Yes, I got the message. But we have a lot more to talk about. But to hold your head up high. Hold your head up high. It doesn't matter where you are politically or partisanly. Good things are happening in the government of Jamaica. We don't have to hold our heads down. We're a proud people, and your government is working in your best interest. You don't have to support it partisanly, but you must want your government to do well, regardless of which party forms government, because nobody is served well when your government fails. And I'm proud to be a part of a government in spite of the challenges that we really are working to do right by the people of Jamaica. So, thank you for your time. Right.
Thank you very much, Minister, for this enlightening session with our diaspora. And thank you, everyone, for coming out this afternoon. I endorse the minister. I second the minister in saying that your Saturday afternoon could have been spent elsewhere or otherwise, but you know what you are about. You wanted to hear things from the truth and everything else from the horse's mouth. And so she, yes. She's not a horse, but you know what I mean. Yes, so I hope that she delivered on all your expectations today. And once again, thank you for being such an engaged and engaging audience. And without further ado, I will just declare today's meeting closed, and the minister will be free for about 15 minutes. Am I?
You see what happened when you have to take instructions from others.
Right. So please, for those of us who want to engage afterwards, she will be available briefly before we take her away for another engagement. Thank you.